AIO My fiance didn't comfort me when I said I wanted to relapse. Bit of background info: we 22 and 23M have been together 4 years, engaged since August, and had a big fight recently. We made up. We don't fight often. I think we're very healthy compared to most couples we see. However, we both have lots of trauma, and that tends to cloud our judgment when we get upset. So fewer fights, but bigger and more emotional fights when they do happen. I want to know if this is one of the those moments or if it's valid for me to be upset. On to today. I've been feeling down and depressed since our fight, including having some thoughts of relapsing with self-harm. Today was the first day we weren't busy since the fight, so it was the first chance we've had to revisit it. I brought it up, saying I didn't want to move on and act like nothing happened even if we've made up. He was patient and calm and said it was valid to still be upset, and asked if there was anything specific I wanted to talk about. I told him I'd been having thoughts of harming myself while he's been seemingly fine, and I feel silly/embarrassed. BC. He seems fine and I'm not. He responds by staying calm and rubbing my back and holding my hand, while he tells me that he's not fine. He just hasn't had time to process it, and while I already apologized through text for something I said while we were fighting, he would like a verbal apology. This is where I might be overthinking. I was immediately sad that it felt like he had no reaction to hearing that I wanted to hurt myself, and instead was asking me to apologize. Now, I have no problem giving him a verbal apology, and I told him as such. I said I will absolutely do so, but that I feel that was a bad time to bring it up, and I felt very dismissed. And he agreed. He apologized and said it was the wrong time, and that we could come back to it later. Then he asked if there was anything else I wanted to talk about. Again, I might be overthinking, but that felt like he was again changing the subject and not acknowledging that I was currently struggling. So I tell him this, and then I say that I'm not sure that I want to continue talking about it since I don't feel heard or seen and don't feel that he can comfort me like I need him to, and it's getting late and he has work in the morning. He agrees and says he cannot give me what I need at the moment because he's tired and anxious and he doesn't want to be tired tomorrow at work. He then hesitates and asks me for reassurance that he's not being a bad partner for going to bed without comforting me, and I basically tell him I can't do that, Aaron, as I'm upset and he's already made his choice. He kissed my cheek and told me he loved me, and now we're laying in bed. He's sleeping. I'm feeling very dismissed and hurt. He is normally the sweetest, most loving partner, but sometimes when we have a serious conversation and I tell him I need him, he freezes up and can't comfort me for one reason or another. Either he's too anxious and spiraling, or he's too tired and has work in the morning, or he's scared he'll just make it worse. He really hates me. It's very frustrating. I do everything I can to make sure I'm there for him when he's struggling, even if I'm upset or tired or also struggling, and sometimes I don't feel like comforting me is a priority for him. Which is confusing, BC. Normally he really is the sweetest guy and treats me like a princess. I really want to marry him and spend my life with him, and I know he does too. I'm wondering if this is a normal thing that can be worked through, or if this is sign of deeper issues/incompatibility. It makes me anxious that he realized he was in his eyes being a bad partner for not comforting me while I really needed him, yet he still followed through and left me alone and upset. Yet he wanted me to comfort him about it and reassure him he wasn't being a bad partner, just not sitting right with me, and I needed to word vomit and get some outside opinions. Edit. I'm 2 years and 10 months clean and I rarely ever talk about it. I'm aware it's my issue to fix. He's the one that's been encouraging me to come to him for comfort and to let him know if I'm struggling. I'm not trying to get him to fix my issue. Story 2. AIO for wanting to end my 5-year-old relationship because I feel it is one-sided. I, 22, met a good guy, 22M, when we were 16 years old in my high school back in the Middle East. He is very polite, does not have any bad habits, and is a very hard worker at his job and the university. He never swears, is very religious and kind also. After being in love for 4 years, he popped the question and I said yes, and we did a religious marriage, not a governmental one. We come from conservative Muslim families. 3 months after that, I traveled to Europe to continue my master's degree there. A month after I traveled, he started being very cold with me. He never calls except if I call him first, always ends the call and says he is very tired and needs to sleep, also leaves me waiting for him to reply to me until after midnight, then comes and says, if I do not reply, just go and sleep and do not wait for me. Reached a point where I need to take an appointment from him to call him. And even with that, I call him like 4 times and he doesn't reply, then comes the next day and says the same thing as always, that he was with his friends for a very late time and came after midnight and slept. One thing I know for sure is that he is not cheating on me with another woman, so of course he is not out at night with girls. In the holy month of Ramadan, I said to him, I don't want anything from you except to call me while I eat at night, which is 2 hours after iftar in my home country, so I am not taking him away from his parents or anything. He never showed up and I ended up eating alone. Also, sometimes when I happen to be able to call him, video call, he used to have the lamp turned off and he disagrees to turn it on. And I do not know why until I cry after begging him to do it, then he turns it on. Also, I always and repeatedly express to him that I do care about communication in our long-distance relationship, and I used to cry for him and beg him to talk to me at least 15 minutes per day, video call. He used to call for some days, then he stops and we go back to the same thing again. Will I be overreacting if I leave him and get a divorce after all of this? After that, I told my mother about everything that I have been passing through, and she said that I should never beg him anymore and simply stop pushing and treat him like he is treating me. So indeed I stopped calling, stopped begging after that, simply wait for his message and reply in the same tone and manner as him. So after some days he became sad and did a huge problem and said that I do not love him anymore and that I am not as caring as before, etc. I said to him back then that I am tired and that I gave this relationship everything and now I have nothing to give anymore, and I counted for him everything bad he did before and how much I went through, etc. So he said, does this mean you longer care about this relationship? I said yes, I no longer care and I will no longer fight for it. I said I still love you, but I am simply tired of everything and do not want to fight. He said he still cares and wants to fight for it. He tried for a month to text me and I always reply. For 4 months now he did not call me, not even once. Now, some things that I am taking into consideration are that I come from a conservative society that looks down at divorced women, and the chances to meet someone else after a divorce are minimal. Also, partners tend to make a woman feel inferior about her past relationships, so IDK what to actually do. So, in short, given all of that, will I be overreacting if I left now? Story 3. AITA for not loving my boyfriend? For context, me, 22, and my boyfriend, 23, have known each other for almost a year and have been dating for close to 9 months now. For me, this is only my second relationship ever, and my first one was very turbulent and, although some parts made great memories, it ultimately did not end well. My boyfriend has been in several serious closed relationships and had some FWB, but no long-term and particularly successful ones. We first met through a dating app and almost immediately hit it off. There was good chemistry and we just felt really comfortable with each other. Only a week after meeting, we decided to schedule our first date, which was a little awkward but overall great. Since then, we were talking almost daily, growing closer to each other, until eventually he suggested we get official. We were basically dating by then, but he wanted to talk it through and, start calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. And here's where it gets a little complicated. So the thing is, when we just started talking, we kinda agreed to non-commitment terms because we both were kinda recent out of toxic relationships around a year ago and kind of didn't want to starting anything serious yet. So just like talking, hanging out, doing on dates, sometimes having sex. Funny thing is, he was initially the one who was firm about these terms. I've never been in an open relationship or FWB stuff and wasn't keen on it. But he said he has no intention of talking to multiple girls at the same time. He just wasn't looking for anything serious, RN, and that aligned with my wishes, so I said okay. But he did say that if we both feel like it, he's open to progressing in our relationship status, which basically happened after around a month of hanging out. He started developing pretty strong feelings towards me and confessed this summer, but I couldn't do it back. I for sure do like and respect him a lot. I do consider him sweet and attractive, and he does treat me very well. I feel like I've started to rely on his support when I don't feel good, and I am incredibly grateful and try to reciprocate to the best of my ability. But I just didn't love him yet. Granted, we do fight sometimes, and some of those are pretty serious, but so far we've been able to communicate our way through them and resolve without leaving any unpleasant residue feelings afterwards. We've both agreed that we'll keep working out any conflicts because we're both very keen on keeping our relationship strong, and I think we've been pretty successful with that so far. right now are very close with my boyfriend and fond of each other. He has also met my parents due to some other circumstances. We weren't really going to do it yet and I didn't really want to, but my father did and Beth was okay with it and it went well regardless. But the worst thing is I've never been able to say I love him to this day. We've had this conversation a few times so far where he'd express his concerns because of this lack of reciprocation. But off-sea, he doesn't see this as a reason to end things, and I can somewhat understand what it's like. And I feel like it's horrible on my part. It feels selfish to keep him around for all this time without telling him I love him back. But I've thought about it deeply, and despite all the great feelings I have towards him, I just don't feel like I actually love him yet. It might change in the future, if it's the case of that slow-burning but true and lasting love some people describe, I'm not sure. But I just truly feel like if I was to confess to him right now, it would be a lie, and I wouldn't be able to follow through with it, because I despise lying and being lied to. I think it might be past trauma with my first relationship that made me very cautious with this, to the point I can't even tell how exactly I feel right now. I did confess to my ex at the time, and I was completely sure I did love him back then, until he broke up with me just a few months later for a reason that seems absolutely unfair to me. And after all of this I really regretted even meeting him, and later confessing to him especially, because I didn't have a great feeling as he has 2 years younger than me but seemed pretty responsible and mature image for his age. But eventually I realized my first and biggest mistake was probably believing that. It's very different with my current boyfriend, whom I value so much and grateful for all the time we spend together, and 90% is better than spending time with anyone else, and the support we give each other is the same. There are now even physical circumstances connecting us. He got a new job that is very far away from his home but pretty close to mine, and he has a way better chance to get at least 5 hours of sleep by staying at my place in between working days than if he was to go home to sleep, which is totally fine with me. It would be devastating if it ended during the time in our lives where we need each other so much. But if I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I want to pursue this relationship really long term. I'm okay with a few years, but I'm not even sure I want to have a serious relationship that lasts longer and might eventually lead to stuff like marriage and starting a family. I'm just not interested in that for now, and neither is my boyfriend, as per his own words. So the main problem is I am concerned that even though everything seems to be going great for us, my boyfriend is hurting deep inside because I've never told him I loved him, and I feel really bad about it and not sure what to do. Any advice would be greatly appreciated, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. To those who took the time to read the entire thing, huge thank you. Story 4. Wibda. For telling my ex's ex-fiance that we dated. My ex-boyfriend, 24M, we'll call him Sam, still lives with his parents and his ex-fiancée, 23M, we'll call her Abby. When she moved in, they were engaged, but when they broke up, his parents still let her live in the house since she had nowhere else to go. When Sam and Abby broke up, Abby still wanted everyone to think they were still together. This includes online and IRL. Sam is a streamer, so half of his career is social media. Abby has threatened him, saying if he doesn't post about them being together, then she would go on his stream and tell his community that he abuses her. I, 22, met Sam through his stream when he first started, and we instantly became friends. We were so close I knew the truth about everything that was happening between Abby and him. After about a year we started to like each other and started dating long distance, but our relationship was a secret. No one knew about it. Everyone just thought he was still with Abby. 3 months into the relationship, we started to get serious. We talked about a plan for him to move out of that house so we didn't have to hide anymore, and we went on a 4-day trip together to meet for the first time. I even helped buy him a car by loaning him 3. Well, about 5 months into the relationship, Sam started to get very distant and would hardly text me during the day. So the only time we got to talk was when he streamed, which then we would have to pretend to just be friends. I would talk to him about it, but he would always brush it off or get defensive. I found out shortly after that he had been talking crap about me behind my back to a group of friends he made in his stream. One of those friends being a girl that would bully me a lot about my appearance, dyslexia, the things I liked, and subtly call me stupid, and he would do nothing about it. When I talked to him about it, he would defend her instead, so eventually I broke up with him and naturally he banned me. Everyone was wondering why I was banned because to them I was just a friend in the community. So I told a few people who I had befriended in his community about what happened. One of them told me that they saw him spending hours one night, when he wasn't streaming, playing video games with the girl who bullies me, so that's when I got a feeling that I had been cheated. I don't have proof, but I mean he did defend her like his life depended on it when I went to him about her bullying me. But anyways, more and more people are coming to me and asking me why I was banned, and I'm telling them the whole truth. I don't care anymore. The one person who still doesn't know yet, though, is Abby, and I've thought about telling her everything. But then again, I don't want to start anything again, and I try not to get in the bad habit of taking revenge on things. I even have photo proof of us together. I don't know, what do you think? Story 5. AIO Dad said my New Year's resolution should be to focus on my health. I, 22, am home for the holidays and about to enter my final semester for university. Being home has really taken its toll on my mental health this time around, as I don't really feel comfortable when staying with my parents. For context, my mom, 52F, is a very emotionally volatile individual. Any hint of criticism inevitably leads to, I guess I'm just an awful mother, anger, and the like. Nothing abusive or anything like that. I already feel like I'm walking on eggshells while I'm home, but it's typically manageable until I return to school. One of the main tension points for my mom and I is fitness. I'm 5'8", around 170 lbfs now, while my mom is 5'6", a size 0, and can't go a day without working out. I love that she's found something she's passionate about and that she feels good where she's at, but that level of dedication has never been my cup of tea. I don't really work out, but I pass for average looking. Most of the weight I put on goes to my thighs, and I wear a lot of baggy jeans just out of a style preference. I've gotten various lectures over the years about taking care of my body, but they mostly haven't affected me too much. Coming back from university, I had gained a couple pounds and was recovering from a mild respiratory infection where I felt like I couldn't draw a full breath, especially after eating. I told this to my mom, who didn't say anything at the time. However, a couple of days ago, I was talking to my dad, 67M, and the least confrontational guy I know who only gets involved in very serious subject matters, about something unrelated, and he out of the blue told me that my New Year's resolution should be to focus on my health more in the coming year. He went on to tell me that I need to eat healthier and be more active on the whole, and said that he and my mom, had noticed it beginning to interfere with my health. He then finished the conversation with, "Aren't you worried about how these habits are affecting you?" To which I replied, "No, I am not." The whole thing has really shaken me up. I've spontaneously reduced my caloric intake since the incident, not out of genuine motivation, but out of fear that my parents think of me as overweight. Coming from years of living with her, this has my mom written all over it. My dad wouldn't have stepped in unless my mom asked him to, probably under the guise of, "She never listens to me." But my emotional response to the situation has gotten to the point of being petrified to eat anything in front of my parents, even having to leave the room to avoid the anxious response. I've also been really melancholy and can't stop crying at random intervals, which is annoying. I have a tendency to be a rather hyper-emotional person, so I am wondering if I am overreacting to this incident. On the one hand, I know they mean well. I checked BMI and I am technically in the overweight categorization for someone in my height range. But another part of me feels shocked and upset that they would try to suggest what my fitness goals should be when I am happy as I am and don't experience any health complications at all from my weight. And to frame it from a concern about health standpoint seems very insincere, considering I have never had any health problems in the past and do not have any current health problems due to my lifestyle choices. Any advice and insight is much appreciated. I am happy to answer questions if people need more clarity on the situation. Story 6. My boyfriend of 6 years put his hands on me. 22M. It started at the gym, where I showed him a message of this one man on Instagram, who we knew from high school, who monthly sends me a hi. I didn't think anything of it, as we usually make a joke out of these people who message me. He then looks me up and down and tells me, "He's messaging you every month, why are you leaving the door open for him and to block him?" I have no issue with that, but he had said it in a way that was different than before. very controlling and talking to me, pointing his finger and acting as if he had some superiority over me. I laughed it off and remained calm while he kept asking if I thought it was funny. Maybe I messed up because I said I'd feel bad just blocking because I was good friends with his brother in high school. He asked if I was serious and why that mattered. We eventually did a separate workout because of his outburst. He came into the studio I was in and started to point at me, saying I'm a narcissist who laughs and demeans him and never takes his words seriously, and he's sick of it. Which is hilarious because I've never once made him believe I'd cheat or unloyal after 7 years. He had cheated on me years prior, when we were younger, and I got him a job at my work. It's time to leave. We get into the car, and right when I'm about to drop him off, he says he's not leaving until I block him right now, and I told him that he was being very dramatic and it was an innocent thing by me showing him the message, because it's what we always do. After back and forth, he said, "Do you need to be slapped for you to listen?" And that took me back. My father has always been abusive as a child to my family, and that's one thing he knows is not okay to say, for anyone to say in that matter. He then asks if I'm a dog who needs a slap to listen. I repeatedly asked him to leave my car and he refused, and then grabbed my phone and went through it. There's nothing on there, of course, and I eventually got sick of this. He was on my phone after threatening to essentially hit me. I attempted to pull my phone from his hand and he hid it from me, refused to give it back. I then started to threaten going inside to tell his mom about what is happening. This went on for 20 minutes before I lunged over to grab it, and I then feel a burning pain on my cheekbone. He grabbed and twisted my wrist. He slapped me. Immediately he says he didn't and tries to hug me and saying I'm sorry, and I went ballistic, crying, hollering, shaking. He still refused to get out after he had hit me, and then I went to call his mother, and he threw my phone and took my keys from the ignition and refused to let me leave until I calmed down. After pleading, he finally left and said he never hit me. He was defending himself when I grabbed my phone and accidentally hit me. I'm lost and hurt, but I'm numb. I don't know what to do. I've only ever been in a relationship with him and we have grown such a close bond, but I can't allow myself to stay with a man like this. I watched my mom go through this. I'm lost. I know he'd never come after me again. He isn't that person, or, alas, now I don't know. He texted me in the middle of the night asking if I was okay. I didn't respond, of course. It's hard when you've grown an incredibly close bond with someone and they know everything about you. I don't know how to start again. It's lonely having no one to talk to. The part of me wants to reach out to confirm the relationship is over, but I don't want him to try and manipulate. His family is the only thing keeping me from completely ending it. They're amazing people. Now I'm ranting. TL? DR? My boyfriend of 6 years put his hands on me after an argument at the gym over me showing a DM of a guy from high school. He told me I needed to block him and continued to say this up until the car ride back home, where he took my phone, and when I tried to grab it, he slapped me in the face.